Well, unless you're living under a rock, you may have heard that there was an attempted assassination against President Donald Trump. Why does this matter? What exactly happened? And let's get into the details of what we know now. Okay, so there was an attempted assassination of President Donald Trump. What exactly happened? Trump was speaking at a rally in Pennsylvania when an assassin began shooting at him from a nearby rooftop.
But I want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Move to the spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you.
Ready?
Move.
Up.
Move. Go.
Up. Hawkeye's here.
We ready?
Those were the exact moments that the shooter began firing. A bullet whizzed by within millimeters of President Trump's head, striking his right ear. Onlookers could see blood dripping down the president's face, as you see in that clip we just played. The president survived, which is a good thing. Unfortunately, one member of the crowd was killed, shielding his family from gunfire. He was fatally struck by the shooter, and he died on scene. His family has since identified him as Fire Chief Corey Comparatori. He died as he lived, a hero, protecting innocent people. Two others in the crowd were critically wounded. In one iconic video, Trump can be seen pausing with his Secret Service detail and raising a defiant fist while mouthing the words, "Fight, fight, fight," to his supporters.
Wait.
There you have Trump making his way off stage under guard of the Secret Service while the crowd cheered on his apparent recovery. Social media was flooded with videos almost immediately, and multiple cell phone clips appear to show the shooter crawling onto the rooftop just prior to the attempted murder. Disturbingly, several random bystanders repeatedly tried to warn law enforcement that there was a guy with a gun crawling up onto the roof, and this was apparently not communicated effectively or quickly enough to stop him from firing rounds toward the president. Here's some of those videos. Here in the first one is one of the observers talking to the news.
We noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle, absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police are like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
Unbelievable. Now, in the days since, FBI has confirmed that one of the local police officers did in fact confront the gunman, and he pointed the gunman pointed his rifle at the local police officer, who then ran away or backed off. And then seconds later, he tried to kill President Trump. Here's another video, which, if you look close, you can see the shooter on the roof before taking his shots.
The Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look. There he is right there. Yeah. Right there, see him? He's laying down. See him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
And Scott, I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a Senate.
What's happening?
And to make sure we take back the White House, because if we do, we're going to make America better than ever before. We're going to make it.
Yeah, look. There he is.
Easy. Because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals. We have drug dealers. We have people that should not be here.
Right on the roof.
It's much tougher than it happens.
You went right on the roof.
Well, there you have it. People all over the place shouting, trying to tell the police and Secret Service there's a man on the roof with a gun. My gosh. So, what exactly happened here? The shooter was identified fairly quickly as Thomas Matthew Crooks. He's a 20-year-old resident of nearby Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. He was, at the time of the shooting, as widely reported, a registered Republican. But hold on a minute. A few years prior, he made a donation to Act Blue. That's a PAC dedicated to getting radical leftists elected to office. The donation Crooks made was earmarked for the Progressive Turnout Project, which is about getting Democrats out to vote. Now, here's where things get really interesting. From an intelligence perspective, I believe that Crooks was a really good subject to be exploited. Now, without going into detail of my background, I spent a long time in law enforcement. I also worked for the Diplomatic Security Service, which specializes in protection operations, both of high value individuals, facilities, etc. Think, places overseas, embassies, Benghazi, etc. We also protected the Secretary of State, the ambassador to the UN, and many others. So I think I have a kind of a unique perspective on protection operations because I've been involved with these types of events many times. Now, when I say from an intelligence angle, if I was a member of the intelligence community today and I was looking to conduct an operation somewhere, oftentimes you look for individuals who are useful for that operation. Now let's do a quick profile of this young man here, Crooks. Information now says that he was bullied in school all the time. He had no criminal history. He's socially very quiet. And I mean, as far as online postings and even in person, apparently classmates have come out to say they didn't really know much about him or his political affiliation. He is the perfect person in my mind susceptible to the "you can be a hero" scam. Now, people are motivated by different things. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's power, and sometimes people are motivated by the idea that they could do something great. Now, in my opinion, given the fact that he's very young, has no professional experience that anyone's aware of, he would have needed some help in planning, especially given his background on this type of activity. And the fact that he stayed extremely quiet leading up until this event also, to me, indicates some professional tradecraft. Someone who knows what they're doing, how to stay under the radar, how to plan without being detected. Someone else is involved other than the bullied, everyday, no experience young kid from Pennsylvania. I don't have any proof of that, but in my professional opinion, this looks like somebody that we would have worked or approached because he matches all of the sort of key points that an operation like this is looking for when you're looking to use somebody. A willing individual, obviously radicalized at some point, but kept it very, very quiet. He's an hour away from where the event took place, where the Trump rally was taking place. So you have travel involved. You have some obvious coordination. Now, there are some other indications of that, and let's jump over and look at the security issues. The U.S. Secret Service allowed the local police to cover the building that the shooter climbed up onto. That to me is odd, in my opinion, because given the location and proximity of the rooftop where Trump was speaking. So if I was planning this event and putting long guns and counter sniper teams to cover the area, given the fact that we're in this sort of farm-looking field, a building that's 150 yards away with a clear line of sight of the stage where the president will be speaking would be an obvious concern to me. The lack of communication is another problem among after members of the crowd repeatedly, as we saw in the video, point out the fact that there was a person with a gun climbing up onto a rooftop that overlooked the president. That seems coordinated to me. And by coordinated, I mean there is some purposeful interference in the communication. Communication is a key element of any operation, whether it's a local law enforcement drug bust or a warrant service or a protective operations. Part of your operation plan is to establish not only primary communication channels, but secondary and tertiary. You have radios, you have cell phones, you have Insta-Talk features. That, to me, seems like it was a little coordinated. And I don't know anything beyond that. I'm not insinuating that I have any information. I'm just saying from a professional perspective, having worked protective operations for almost 20 years, this seems very, very odd to me that with multiple people pointing out a man with a gun walking towards the president's venue, then they report that he's crawling up on the roof, no response. Then a police officer confronts him, gets a gun pointed at him, no reaction. All of that seems very, very odd to me. The reaction of the counter sniper team, we can dissect that for a minute, is not really in accordance with training. In one video, and you know, I agree with Dan Bongino had some great perspective on this, and he said the same thing. I agree with him. I don't think I could say it any better. That, you know, you don't want to backseat quarterback everything, but this isn't a game. This is the president of the United States. And one thing you noticed right away in another cell phone video that we didn't play this time, but you can see that the counter-assault sniper lifts his head up off the sight to look over the barrel. That seems odd to me, not really in keeping with training. And then also he's already looking the direction of the rooftop. Now, if you look at the map, which have been widely circulated, you can Google venue map, and you'll see there's really not much out there in that field. Those buildings are one of the only buildings or rooftops that you could get onto that close to take a shot at the president. And he's already looking that way. Plus, what we just talked about, you have all the people screaming, there's a man with a gun, there's all this communication, and somehow it doesn't reach the right people. Is this gross negligence? Is this DEI doing its work? Or is there something purposeful here? The reaction of the team on the ground is not in accordance with training. One of the first things you learn when going to any sort of high-threat protective operation course is react to contact or react to fire drills. Now, react to contact is very different in a direct action situation or small unit when you're the aggressor or you're out there, you know, in a battlefield. When I say react to contact in protective operation, it's when you have a principal or a protectee with you. They become the primary goal, protecting that person and getting them out of the line of fire. Now, from the very beginning, when you train, you look at schematics, you look at movement on identifying first the direction of fire. Where's it coming from? Attack right, attack left, etc. Then immediately people are assigned closest to that protectee. It's all a coordinated dance. And of course, moving away from the fire. And then when you move up into, you know, your practical apps, and again, I'm talking about training for these events, you know, we would actually drive in vehicles and we would have mock scenarios where role players, opposing force, would shoot with paintballs or sim rounds, which are, you know, paint-tipped rounds. And we go through this dance over and over and over again. I mean, they really beat it into your head how to react to fire and protect your principal. Not to mention that we figured this out years ago. We've been doing this for a very long time. You have the Secret Service, you have the Diplomatic Security Service, which protects more people, I believe, than any other organization on the planet. You know, I spent time with a private military contractor back in the day. Also went through this training, and everyone is very proficient at this point in history. And if you look at the reaction of the team on the ground, they didn't do any of the basic elements of react to contact. They at first, some of them did. They kind of huddled. And then, you know, some of the agents sort of ducked and or obviously looked afraid. They lingered there on stage for way too long. And I understand the president was saying, wait, let me get my shoes. You can hear that on the audio. But the truth is, when you're doing hostage recovery or moving a protectee, in that moment, that person is no longer the boss. You keeping them alive is priority number one. And so you take hold of them, you manhandle them, and you move them. You get them into a position of safety, whether that's in a vehicle, waiting nearby, or a position of cover. So all of that was off, all of it. And the third thing I really noticed was the overhead coverage is completely absent. So again, this event was in the middle of a field, and you just have a few buildings around that could have easily been covered by a drone, a fixed wing, eye in the sky, a helo. Where was the forward-looking infrared? Where's the FLIR or the thermal? Where's anything that would have detected a guy with a gun, a rifle, no less, climbing up onto a roof 150 yards away from the president? Okay, so that's sort of the tactical on the ground perspective. Just stuff that I'm observing, and I've spoken to a lot of people within the industry, right? SWAT guys, my very close, family member is a sniper. And then, of course, I spent years in this industry. And I'm ever since this happened, your phone's just blowing up with everybody talking about it. And the general consensus amongst all of these guys, men that I know and have worked with who've spent years in high-threat environments protecting people, is that the entire incident was a disaster. They're all saying the same thing I'm telling you now. Okay, so then there's the government angle. And this is something that we've been harping on for many, many years. So whenever leftists are in charge, whenever Democrats are in charge, people die, period. We lived this in the Middle East. We lived this in the disastrous, treasonous withdrawal from Afghanistan under the Biden administration. I lived this under Hillary Clinton as Sec State in the disaster that was Benghazi. Now, Benghazi specifically is a good point to compare here because you have some similarities here. Benghazi, in the year prior to that led up to the attack on Ambassador Stevens there in Benghazi, there were repeated requests for upgraded security made from the Department of State and the RSOs on the ground to Hillary Clinton's State Department, and they were repeatedly denied. Over and over and over again, they sent messages, cables saying, hey, we need, the facility that we're in is not up to standard. We need better equipment. We need more people, etc. All of it was denied. And from the intelligence community, there was warning after warning after warning about Benghazi. Warning Hillary's State Department that there were brigade-sized elements of terrorists moving into the area around Benghazi. All of it was denied. In retrospect, of course, we understand that this was for ideological reasons. They, at the time, were propping up the concept of the Arab Spring, which ended up being a disaster and, again, led to many, many innocent deaths. And the fact that Benghazi was being radicalized after Gaddafi was removed went against the narrative that everything was cool. Everything was cool. Arab Spring was awesome. Our policy's working. It was not working. And they went so far down that lie that when Ambassador Stevens was killed, despite knowing that the intelligence community and the CIA had warned them for a long time about this potentially happening, despite RSOs from the State Department telling them that we need more equipment, we need better security, etc. Despite all of that, Hillary Clinton went on TV and blamed it on some American citizen in San Diego who made a video making fun of Muhammad. That was a blatant lie. They knew it was, and they were trying to save their skins. Now, why do I bring all this up in light of the attempted assassination of Donald Trump? Well, in a very similar way, the director of the Secret Service currently returned to the Secret Service because she did 27 years there and then retired. She was working for Pepsi. She was invited back by the Biden administration. Obviously, she had an agenda, and that agenda was not proficiency. Now, we are hearing the exact same story that for months now, those around Trump were asking for upgrade in security, for more Secret Service coverage, for better whatever it is that they needed. And they were repeatedly denied. Now, keep in mind, and I apologize here for pausing for a minute, but let me look up the director's name because I forgot her name. Requests for upgraded security were repeatedly denied, and her name is Kimberly Cheadle. Okay. So remember, Kimberly Cheadle, as the director of the Secret Service, made it her priority to push DEI. Her priority was hiring more women and diverse hires. It was not being better at her job, being more proficient, protecting people, training, tactical proficiency. No, it was diversity, equity, and inclusion. The failed communist nonsense that replaces proficiency with undeserved positions. Now, remember that Cheadle works for the Department of Homeland Security, because that's what Secret Service falls under. And of course, I remind you that leading DHS is Mayorkas, who has come under repeated attack by Republicans for his treasonous behavior, his utter failure on the border. So just like Benghazi, you have a lot of politics and ideology that's messing up the scene here. DEI in general has poisoned all levels of the Biden administration. DHS at the border, DOJ with all of their lawfare and anti-American nonsense, bureaucrats running amok, destroying the country's infrastructure. And like I said at the beginning, whenever Democrats are in charge, people die. They're not serious people. They're fantasy people. They don't deal in the realm of reality. And when they take over big boy stuff like the Department of Defense or DHS or DOJ or Secret Service or any other agency that relies on real world capability, people die. They fail. So this is where we're at now. Investigation is ongoing. FBI is continuing to investigate this. They have publicly stated that they're investigating the attempt assassination as that and also as a potential domestic terrorist situation. I have my opinions from the outside. I'm obviously not privy to some of the inside or classified information that I'm sure will come out going forward. But in a nutshell, that's what happened. Trump survived. He will be at the RNC convention, which kicks off today, Monday, July 15th, in Milwaukee. And let's talk about that for a minute. So today, the RNC convention kicks off in Milwaukee, and there's going to be several things we're waiting to hear. One, of course, will be the long-awaited Trump VP announcement. Rumors abound as to who this could be. We've heard J.D. Vance. I even today heard Trump is thinking about an actor. The other issue, which is of particular concern for Christians around the country, is the RNC's betrayal of our values when it comes to marriage and the issue of abortion. Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council and member of the RNC Platform Committee, submitted a minority report after the RNC voted to change the party's platform and the wording when it came to marriage and abortion to sort of ease off. In other words, appease or compromise. There's a small group of people pushing this. It's quite the betrayal, stab in the back for Trump's supporters. Trump was wrong to back this, and I'm sure he'll see it's caused a lot of division. But president of the FRC, Tony Perkins, did submit a minority report, and we're hoping that this change, which will only serve to further divide the party, can be stopped. As the RNC chooses compromise and they placate the leftists under this delusional idea that there are these mysterious undecided voters, a fantasy pushed by a particular group of people within the party that are obviously seeking their own agenda, not the welfare of this country. In fact, recent polls I just got from somebody this morning show there's virtually no undecided voters in the country at this point at all. It's such a small percentage. That's not really what changing our platform is about. And lastly, I guess, and we'll leave it with this, I would call, if you're a believer, if you're a Christian, if you're a church, you need to be praying for America. Because pastors and churches who continue to ignore what's happening around them are like travelers walking by the injured man on the road. It's a callous and cowardly approach to living out your faith. I don't think pastors need to be politicians, far from it. But they do need to speak truth into people's lives and demonstrate that God's word is relevant to what's happening in our lives. And it's never changing. Instead of continuing to adopt the cultural perspectives on morality, pastors need to take a stand for righteousness and truth, because Jesus is the only answer for America. And that includes the realm of politics, and society, and culture. And to say otherwise is just ignorant. So first and foremost, the way to combat that, if you're a believer, get up every day and get into the Word of God. Set your tone for the day. Let the Word of God do what it does. It's applicable for all things. Instruction, correction. It's wisdom, literally. And if you set your tone by getting the Word of God into your head each day, that's going to affect the rest of your day. It's going to affect the way you interact with your wife, your children, your family, your friends, everyone around you. And it will also affect the way that you look at the world. Because too many churches now are looking at the world and the culture through the lens of the worldly definition of culture and truth. And that's very dangerous. The only lens we should be looking through is that of a biblical worldview. And now is the time to do it, because things aren't necessarily, super happy-go-lucky right now in the country. Things are tough. People need to hear truth. They need to hear truth and be loved, and loved in truth, if that makes sense. They don't need to be placated. They don't need to be told whatever would appeal their ears. Truth is love. You can't separate those two. If you're lying to somebody, you don't love them. So pray for America. And we'll be back this week with another full episode. We just wanted to jump on and get you caught up on what happened with Trump. Follow us, if you will, on Instagram, Defining Truth, or you can search Josiah O'Neill. You can also check out all of our episodes, including this one, on YouTube if you're watching it there. And you can listen to the audio on any platform that you get your podcasts. So Apple, Google, Amazon, Spotify, we're on all of those, so you can listen if you're driving in the car, etc. Again, if you want to watch, check out our YouTube channel at Defining Truth on YouTube. Subscribe there to get alerts when new content comes out, and we'll keep doing what we do. And if you get a chance, check out definingtruth.org. It's our website, and on there you'll see our book that just came out, self-titled Defining Truth. The book is meant to be a tool for your toolbox. It is 10 chapters where I broke down all of these culture war issues from a biblical perspective, and our aim is to equip people with the appropriate response so that they can stand and give a defense for what they believe. The book is called Defining Truth, and it's available on our website, definingtruth.org, or you can get the audio version at audible.com. We'll see you guys next time.